Today, my guests are William Humphrey, the pharmacy director at St. Jude Children's Hospital, and Alex Rodriguez, the compliance program manager at St. Jude. Today, we are going to talk about the successful implementation of cameras in the OR. Yep, you heard correctly. I'm sure all the listeners out there want to just jump straight to the end and see how you got approval to do this, but we're going to start more at the beginning. So welcome, William. Welcome, Alex. Thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're glad to be here.
Was there a particular event that spurred this whole thing on, that got you working toward getting approval for this, or was this just part of your general diversion prevention and monitoring package there at your hospital?
Well, I think it was a combination of a couple of things. I don't think we would have jumped straight to cameras, but there was definitely a gap in our capabilities to investigate events when they occur. There was definitely plenty of news stories at other facilities of things that had occurred that could have been prevented with such surveillance technology in place. And so looking at all the different factors, it just seemed like the right move or the right next step towards preventing diversion here.
Okay, that sounds good. That makes sense.
And installing cameras was part of our strategic planning for the diversion program. And we started in areas outside the OR because that was easier. Putting them in OR, raised some concerns with us because we wanted to protect patient privacy. So we had to kind of wait until we had, the ability to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think every facility where that topic has even come up, somebody in the room always says, oh no, they would never let us do that. And that's the end of the discussion and you just move on. So that's why I'm really excited to see what you're doing and hear how you got it done and that it can work, right? So are these cameras, what are they facing and what do they capture?
Well, all the cameras are primarily focused on our dispensing cabinets. In this picture here, what we're looking at is the anesthesia cabinet. And of course, an OR comes with many challenges to try and capture the anesthesia cabinet. That's not a cabinet that stays in one place and moves around that OR. So that's the decision we went with a fisheye, so we can kind of capture that whole circumference area where that cart might be during a particular procedure. The other part, as you can see here, is there's a part there that's like white and blocked out. That wasn't done by me or any type of PowerPoint adjustment. That's actually a masking technology that is available with these cameras that allow us to prevent any recording or any capturing of that footage in a particular zone. So of course, in these ORs, we point it at where a patient might be having a procedure while still allowing us to capture anything going on with the medication, its dispense, the waste, what's happening between the anesthesiologist maybe being in the room. Like I know there was that case with that cardiac technologist who would go into the OR room before a procedure and he would swap out some of the medication with saline. Putting a process like this in place that monitors that OR room can prevent that from occurring.
That masking technology is pretty cool. So yeah, right where your patient is, obviously you have to be mindful of how your rooms are set up, right? Can you change that masking piece if your OR1 is usually set like this and 2 is usually set like this? Yes. You can move that? Okay.
Yes, and we make sure to update that on a regular basis. I think we're like many other hospitals, the OR doesn't stay in the same place. So we adjust accordingly and monitor to see that everything that should be blocked off is blocked off.
Okay. And are you monitoring 24/7 or only when there's a case going on?
So we don't have active monitoring of the footage. We use data to drive the decisions of when we pull up footage. We have a diversion detection prevention software solution in place, and so it'll give us timestamps. We have the medication cabinets data to let us know when the dispense occurred, what medication was dispensed. So by combining all these data points, then we have a timeline of what we actually want to look at when. Um, we don't use active surveillance unless we're doing random audits, which we do have to do to make sure that things like witness wasting is occurring. Um, Sometimes we have to look back in time to see maybe if some property damage occurred. It's usually never anything malicious. It's likely that a cabinet's behind a door, and now we know that that doorknob can hit that screen, right? So we learn from it, from the footage, and either do some education or move a cabinet out of the way, right? So there's multiple reasons that we look back on the footage, but it's not something that people are constantly watching.
Sure. You can solve the mystery of how does that happen when
Yeah.
you're looking. Is it recording 24/7?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We made a decision to have it record 24/7 because we made this large investment in this technology, and we want to make sure that we can rely on it. What we learned is that if we only use motion control, it wasn't capturing actually all the motion. It wasn't sensitive enough. And we didn't want to end up having something occur and then find out that this system we put all this focus on and put in place wasn't going to provide us what we needed.
Sure. Now you talk about, you go back and you look when you have a reason to look, but you also do some randoms because you gave that example of, the tech that is prior to a case. And if something goes undetected, essentially, but it's right there in front of your eyes, you won't know unless you kind of do a random spot check. Although hopefully everybody knows the camera's there, right? So hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah,
We,
it's
we
just couldn't happen anymore.
Yeah, we make it very clear, like why it's there, how it's used. There we keep very open communication with the staff, and also create a system to make sure that whenever we expand to new areas, that we also expand the system. So staff kind of put it one on one. This is where controlled substances are, and this is where a camera will be.
Okay. And who has access to that feed? Who can look at it?
It's a good question. So there's just me and Dr. Humphrey, and there is one security tech who help us with the masking technology and maintaining the system to make sure that it's up. So we actually get a report every morning of all the cameras being checked to make sure they're up and running. And we also have logs to make sure that anybody else who access it, we're notified of it. And also what footage we're looking at, who's watching the watchers. We want to make sure that all the information is there in case we need to audit something.
Good point. Getting a report to make sure the cameras are working.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I've been there. It's like, oh, let's go look at the feed. And then they discover at that moment, oh, that camera is offline.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the one time I need it.
You'd be surprised how many times like a light will move right into the view, not on purpose, but just from like the work in the day. And so it might not be that the camera's down, but I'm like, hey, can somebody make sure that this physical item in the room isn't blocking the view?
Interesting. Okay, good. Do you have them in other procedural areas other than the OR?
We have it in the medicine rooms, in the pharmacies. We have them where the controlled substances are compounded. And we have them, I actually, when they come in the door to make sure from the moment, we get custody of the medication, we have eyes on those medications moving through our hospital.
Do you have them in like interventional radiology and
Yes.
cath lab and those type places?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay.
It's
And
a
it works.
similar setup to the OR.
Yeah. Okay. Where you can block off the patient. Okay. That's great. Have you found any other byproduct value other than diversion of having these cameras? I think you mentioned, maybe equipment anything else to justify maybe to administration the cost of the cameras?
We have.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr.
We've caught people not following process correctly. Everything from, we had a pharmacy technician doing replenishment in the OR and wasn't garbed appropriately.
Oh.
So we had to address that. We've witnessed nurses, they'll just pop the tops off a vial and stick a needle in it without swallowing it. And so
actually, some of them think that that's okay. They think it's sterile under that cap. I found that out once too. It was like, oops.
And so there's an education effort, that we went through to kind of, that's not sterile under there. So
right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think events in general, sometimes they're not always drug diversion related, but because this covers all these areas where medications are dispensed, you can use them reliably to investigate some events with medication and
sure.
being involved.
Yeah, I wonder too if they haven't done it already. I wonder if it could be of value when there is some sort of case where risk is involved. Like, did the timeout actually occur? If something goes wrong with the procedure, I guess this could be, this is an interesting legal thing. Is it discoverable? I guess that's a question. And is it going to work to your advantage? If it is, it could help you prove something, or it could help you disprove something as well. So those are a couple of thoughts. Have you heard of it being used in any kind of risk situation?
I think because they're not in those kind of areas, aside from the OR cabinet areas, I have not. I think most of these cabinets are just in areas where the preparation of the medication occurs.
Okay, I was just thinking it captures the bedside pretty well. Anyway, that's just some place where it may or may not be used, which would definitely be probably a legal discussion on discoverability. So what process did you have to go through to get these approved, William? I'm sure it wasn't an easy thing.
Yeah, we had originally had them in our plan, and then we brought a consultant in to kind of look at a gap analysis, and their recommendation was to add cameras as well. So that kind of helped reinforce our need for them. And so it was put together along with, it came mainly from pharmacy and compliance. And so we justified it and got it approved. And then, we kind of phased it in.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So a good example of, that it would be, excuse me, a good idea, and you have it on your roadmap, but the complete buy-in is not there. And then either with the assistance of an outside consultant that the hospital probably paid good money to get their feedback, or sometimes I've seen it in the case of a regulator that comes for a survey, and then they add that final piece of, hey, this is what you're missing, or this is what you need, and then that's enough to push it over, and then we take advantage of that. So that's great. Do you have an example of a diversion case that you can share with us, either that was seen on camera or maybe unrelated to camera, just a diversion case? I think we all learn so much from each other when we hear about cases that we have had. So if there's something that you can share with us, I'm sure the listeners would love to hear about one of your cases.
Dr. Humphrey, do you want to talk about maybe the wasting one?
Which one?
So we had an issue with wasting into sharps container empty controlled substance vials, but even that had some residual medication in it. So we did have an event where somebody was diverting using those waste containers as somewhere they can get medication. Even though most of it was wasted, they were grabbing those
Just
empty
the
vials.
overfill. Okay.
Yes, the overfill. And we did not have those cameras in place in time for that. But it did expand our camera system to cover those areas, and also do an analysis of where those bins go around the hospital, to make sure that we had surveillance in place for the full process all the way till it gets loaded on a truck and taken away.
Okay. Can you share with us? That's an interesting thought, to find somebody that's taking the overfill out of bins. Can you share with us what alerted you to that? What prompted you to, I mean, how'd you find it?
Well, it was actually our staff reported it, and from there, our diversion response team did an investigation, and of course, with that came a lot of analysis, post-event analysis, to kind of look at every avenue of how we can prevent this from happening in the future.
Okay, so some staff member saw somebody taking it out.
Yeah, I you know what? I think that's something most important from even these cameras. Like, yes, this is speeding up a lot of investigations, but our the biggest value to a drug diversion prevention program is actually other staff reporting if they see something strange going on. And I think yes, my investigation time's probably now days from a week or something like that. But when it comes to major issues, I think the most important resource is other people.
Absolutely. They need to feel comfortable to report, and we need them to report because they're up there. You know, you down in the pharmacy, you're looking at data, but you know, there's a lot more that's going on up there, the behaviors, the performance, so much more. Do you utilize the cameras at all for to rule out diversion for things that maybe you're seeing in your data, and then you can go to a camera to see what happened?
Oh man, I think that's the biggest value gained is being able to prove people innocent. And I want to say that's almost like a weekly thing. Not that we have any crazy weekly issues, but it's so simple to forget to document something on that cabinet, or that waste that occurred or something like that, and then being able to be ruled out as a diverter within the hour of the data showing that. I think that's very powerful, and speaks a lot about why this surveillance system has brought so much value.
So if your data tells you that somebody didn't waste, then you can go to your camera and watch them go through the process to confirm that they actually did, right? I guess it wouldn't
Exactly.
help you if they didn't chart administration, though. That's still an
Correct.
open hole, right? Okay.
Correct.
So I can see the value in that. Yeah,
Unless it's actually the OR.
Oh, true. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I see the value in that. I use the surveillance software, and if somebody forgets to do something, of course, most of the time they come back and say they did it, but we still consider that as a risky transaction, and it's kind of like a point against them, right? If it doesn't happen again, then it's like whatever. But too many of those, and you start to think, I think you're lying to me because you keep on doing it. You need to stop. So I think that's pretty cool that she can rule that out. Okay, great. Anything else that either one of you wants to tell us about the cameras or how it's used or the value before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I got one more thing, and that's the length of time that we record for is now up to 90 days.
Okay.
Because if you do find something, you want to be able to look back at multiple transactions, not just one thing that occurred, to kind of see the trend. And so that was a large part of this project, and I think probably larger than the actual as far as technology goes and the cameras themselves, is the infrastructure to save all that data and be able to pull it up fairly quickly. And I think that was something that I didn't expect to be such a big part of that project.
Yeah, that is, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, so it's rolling 24/7 and you can go back 90 days to see
Yes.
something. Yes. Yeah, that is. I know backup and storage is a huge. Do you have things on site or are you cloud-based?
Uh, Both.
Oh,
We have backups in case on cloud in case something
okay.
occurs with the
Right.
on-site,
Yeah.
but
Okay,
it'll be
great.
much slower. That's the cloud infrastructure. It's just slower to pull in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That's great. All right. William, any closing words that you want to? I think Alex did a pretty good job of articulating your program there with what you got.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with everything Alex said. Um, yeah, prior to this, if we suspected somebody of diverting, and we didn't have evidence, on the camera that they were actually wasting, I mean, we had to take disciplinary action, that often included suspension and so forth. And this is really, I think, like Alex said, it's really allowed us to rule out and
Hmm.
help more than it has in finding diversion.
Yeah, and that's important too. I mean, how many cases do we get where we kind of are scratching our head like, oh, I'm just not sure. And so that would be really nice to be able to rule something out with that. So it's great. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and congratulations on your camera. I think there's a lot of people out there that are very jealous.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
All right.
Have a
Thanks.
good day.